Hey, everybody. That is Gary Smith.
Hello.
That is Kaz Kenny.
Kapow!
And I am Eddie Bramble, and this is episode 26 of the Blackwaters Edge podcast.
Man,
Kaz, why don't you start us off with this week's fish report?
26 is a lot of podcasts.
26 is a lot, man.
I
We're rolling.
hope we get to the day where we can say 526.
That'd be awesome.
You know what I
Me
mean?
too. I'll be an old man.
All right, so let's talk a little fishing, okay? So what's going on down here in Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge and the surrounding areas? Well, all weeks it's been MEPS, it's been MEPS, it's been MEPS, it's been Daryl Willie's chatterbaits, which Gary will commentate on that in a minute. So let's talk about what's happening. You know, we're seeing a lot of the same stuff we've been seeing the last couple of weeks. You know, we got fish on the spawn, we got fish garden fried, we got fish pairing, we got fish eating, we got fish getting a suntan on the beach, you know, when they're bored. So fish are everywhere. So as far as the snakeheads go, let's look to live bait. You know, let's look to inline spinners. Let's look at swim baits. Let's look at some topwater stuff, some frogs, some whopper ploppers. Look, nothing's off the table with these fish right now. You just don't know. So don't be afraid to continue to sort through your box and try something different. If you notice the fish are feeding on shad that are only an inch and a half long, it's a no-brainer to throw an inch and a half long bait out there. You know, if you see them ripping through the schools of shad in front of the pipes or on the edge of the shoreline, you know, and if you can get a chance to get a treble through there and maybe pick one of them fish up by accident or something like that, you'll see what these fish are eating. And it's all about matching the hatch. You know, we were over at Blackwater last week. You know, we saw shrimp on the rocks, so we know that they're eating shrimp. We watched them scraping the rocks, eating shrimp. So, you know, they're eating everything. So nothing's off the table. Don't be afraid to throw a lure you haven't thrown in 20 years. It might be the new next thing. You know what I mean? So
Hold on to your rod.
that's
too.
right. That's right. As far as catfish and everything else go, you know, there's a few catfish being caught at night. They're catching lots of crabs, you know, while they're snakehead fishing, letting a chicken neck or two hang out in the water. Just make sure you know what your minimum sizes are on the crabs and make sure what you're keeping is legal for you to keep. I do know that this week that we had quite a few folks that were stopped for transporting fish, and good job out there, NRP, what you guys are doing. We appreciate that. So, you
Absolutely.
know, when you're going to put fish in coolers and aerators and stack 30 of them in there with water and try to tell the man that you're not moving fish, that ain't going to fly, I can tell you that. So, look, we're just glad that everything's going good down here. The chop tank, let's talk about Route 50. You know, we got some fish showing up at Route 50. We got white perch, few spot, rockfish. Couple reports of some big black drum off of that bridge, folks. 40, 50, 60 pounders. Don't be afraid to grab a handful of soft crabs and let them soak in the water for a little bit because you never know what you're going to catch over there. So, Gary, I know you want to talk a little bit about your adventures this week and some of the lures you were using. So, why don't you tell everybody what you found out there this week?
Well, I'm a big top water guy, but Daryl Willie has these little splatter baits, and it's basically a spinner bait that's a chatterbait, and it is one awesome lure. And what I've been doing when I've been putting these grub tails, minnow tails, whatever you want to call on them, and I cast them out and I let them sink. You know, Blackwater's pretty shallow, so it only takes about 2 seconds and it's on the bottom. But I'll twitch it 2 or 3 times and then let it fall, and twitch it 2 or 3 times and let it fall. I've caught the 4 biggest snakeheads that I've caught this year all on these, and haven't had a miss yet on either one that's ever hit it.
How's the lure holding up when you hook up?
Fine. It's hard on the tail, but the lures are fine.
Good. It's good. So you want
Yeah,
everybody to know it's strong enough. You're able to handle a 10-pound fish
and they'll
with no
stretch
problem.
out a little bit. It's a patent thing, but right here where they're bent, it's not fastened there. And if you get one, they'll open it up a little bit. All you got to do is just bend it back and then bend this back out so it's at an angle again. You're good to go.
What was Mary's secret last week?
She caught that on a little teeny $1. I think it was a straight king spinnerbait.
So there you go,
A
folks. You
little
just
teeny
heard me
white
say,
spinnerbait.
don't be afraid to reach in the box and
That's
throw
right.
something you
I
haven't
couldn't
thrown in
believe-
20 years. That's
Yeah,
why I want to
couldn't
ask that
believe
question.
that he didn't
you know?
straighten the hook out. Really, I mean, it's
But you've caught this week how many snakeheads you think on some of the addiction baits? I know you've caught at least a dozen.
I caught 3 on frogs this week, and pretty much these. I mean, I went last Saturday. It was, Chicago's lost their hold, man. This is the Windy City. Wolford is it, man. I'm telling you, it blows every day.
And I know we've shared some of these lures with our guests today, so hopefully our guests will be able to talk a little bit about that. But hey, Gary, things have been cutting loose here, and you've got some openings coming up for guides if anybody needs to go.
Yeah, got a couple
and look, Gary put you right in the Dragon's Lair. It's not about numbers to us. If you want numbers, we'll take you for numbers. That's no problem. But if you want to get that dragon off the bucket list, right here, that's the Dragon's Lair right there.
And I can tell you, if I take you, you're not going to catch 40, 50 fish a day. It ain't going to happen. But So like I told Mary, if you catch one, it's going to be
the one.
She caught two. The first one was about maybe 18, 20 inches, and the second one was 30 and a half.
I will say this, man. You were persistent. I've talked to a couple of people that have had the opportunity to go out with you here recently, and they've had nothing but good things to say. They say you're dedicated. You're going to make sure that they have a good time. So, I just want to say thanks for all the help that you're giving these people that are coming, Gary.
It's more fun to see somebody catch one. Like Mary, that was her personal best. That was cool.
All right. What do you think, E?
All right, so I think we can get on with this week's guest now.
Let's do it.
All right, so this week we've got Bobby Herbert here today. Bobby, how you doing?
All right.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Me.
Yeah.
I was invited. Kaz invited me here, and I'm glad to do it. And but I'm going against my grandfather's advice, which, by the way, is Eddie's great grandfather.
That's right.
And he told me when I was a boy, he says, "Boy, it's better to be thought a fool and open your mouth and erase all doubt." But he also said, "No fools and no fun."
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah, I'm born and raised here, and when I graduated high school, I went in the Navy and served in the Navy, but I went all over the world, but I came back home, to Church Creek, Wolford, and I eventually moved back to Church Creek and been there ever since. In 1995, I was the kind of person that says, they ought to do this, and someone asked me if I would be interested in running for office. And I thought about that. I'm a guy that says they ought to do this, and I thought, or they ought to do this, and I thought I ought to do this. You serve my community. I've served my country, and so I got elected mayor in 1995. And I don't know if you can't find anybody else or
it's a late term, Bob.
I'm in my 13th term, my 25th year, but I care about the community. That's
why you're still mayor.
Yeah. So try to do a good job, and I treat people the way I want to be treated. So, and I love fishing. I love my farm, and I met Kaz through a video that I saw. Our friend Webby was helping him out, and I saw him later, and I thought, oh, that's the guy in that video. And we got talking, and we've been friends ever since.
We have.
And Kaz is as far as the lures go, he's always got a handful. Try these, and that's great. We were talking before we started here that told you guys, you all got it made with all these lures and MEPs and all this stuff. I started fishing probably when I was 6, but when we got into the freshwater fishing, and I was 14 years old when we got spinning reels. We never knew what a spinning reel was to try to learn how to use this thing.
Well, this is going to be good.
And
I
started working when I was 12 years old for a farmer here, Teddy Bramble. And so when the other kids were out playing baseball, I was farming. So I had money saved. And I found out about these spinning reels. And I said, well, I want to get one of those. And I went, Tommy Sporting Goods, rod and reel, $14. In 1964, somewhere around there, and
wow.
And learn how to use that, and so like I said, we had MEPs back then. You want a little spinner, that's what you got. You got it at Tommy's. This wasn't a big sporting goods store. This was like a little diner. It had a corner that had fishing tackle in it.
That's kind of how we started out here at the store.
Yeah,
Well, there weren't any big. There weren't Bass Pro.
The things back then, like we were talking about, was a jitterbug and the spinner and the Tony Acetto spoon, white bucktails and hula popper. Yeah. Gary said I had a hula popper before Hawaii was even a state. But we would had to save money to buy this stuff. But my grandfather he could do anything. He taught me how to do anything, jack of all trades, and he had a nice shop. So I'd go in his shop. Instead of spending my money with Tommy's buying hula poppers, I thought, I can make these things. So I went on his wood lathe, and I'd turn out hula poppers. And back then, if you wanted to make your own lures, it was a mail order called herders. So you got your decoys and all your fishing rods and all that from them. So we'd order the treble hooks and the little eyes and all that stuff. And we got the molds for the bucktails, and And back then, when you want to make a bucktail, you killed a deer, so you would get the bucktail. You know,
I love this story.
and we had a little vise that you'd put your bucktail in there, and you made your apron. We cut our own aprons out, and you put that on. Then you put the hair, and then you wound it on this little thing, and then put your glue on it to glue it. And we made all our own lures. You know, when they come to the one they called mops, with a piece of like window chain or something. You got that, and you got some thread, and you sat there and you pulled all them through. But we got all that stuff from herders.
So you mean to tell me that you are the original gangster of developing custom lures here on the Eastern Shore?
We all did.
Everybody did.
So it's not a new thing. These guys build their own stuff.
You know, we're self-sufficient on the shore.
Well, everything was
go,
made out of
baby.
wood back then. They didn't have
Yeah.
fiberglass or plastic lures. Everything was wood.
Yeah, it was wood.
All your plugs were all wood.
What was one of the favorite lures that you made? Did you have a name for it? Did you guys give it a nickname or anything like that? Or what was your favorite one to make at home and test out?
It would be the hula popper.
Hula
Made
popper.
the hula popper, and we had one, and I forget what they were called, but they were kind of like banana shape. And
I know exactly what you're talking. Flatfish it
Flat
was
one.
called.
Yeah.
Flatfish
Yeah,
it was
flatfish,
called. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I have some of them.
and
Yep.
we would make those. And of course, painted it yourself.
Right.
And like I said, then you got your paint, all that stuff from herders, because that's what that was for. That was where you got that stuff.
I think the flatfish was like the first crankbait
Yeah.
that they came out with next to I'm trying to remember what it was called. Pico perch was another one that they made, and it was a metal lure that had a metal bill on it. That was called the Pico perch, but the first crankbait was that flatfish that you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Then they made those little spinners with they were like yellow with the little white dots on them, or black with white dots or whatever, and they'd
Yeah.
spin around and they would tangle your line up. After a while, they'd twist
Yeah.
your line up so much you'd have to go to something else.
There was another one they made, I remember back in the day. It was called the Little George. It was like a piece of lead with a little tail spinner on the back of it. It had one treble hook on the bottom. It had one place to tie your line. All you did was drop that thing to the bottom, wait till it hit the bottom, lift it up a foot, and go whoop, whoop, whoop. It was the easiest thing to use, the ugliest thing I ever saw, and God darn it, that thing caught fish.
It was only three. It was only three species of fish back then too.
And you know, we got smarter too, because you know, like I said, we'd have to go buy one of these lures, and so we know what to use to make it. Then we realized, wait a minute, I can look at this picture of it in the catalog. I can see what it looks like. I can make it from that.
The original knockoffs.
That's right. That was before the Chinese
Yeah, you
knockoffs.
didn't have to go to New York City to get it. You get right up here in town in Cambridge on the corner, $5.
So they always say Chinese make it better. Look, take your idea, Bobby. Boom.
Yeah. And you know, we couldn't afford expensive decoys and all that, so we used to carve our own. And we'd go back in the woods, and they were real rough, and they worked.
They worked.
Paint up and work. And then the quickest way to make them was take a bleach job, paint both ends of it black. All you needed was something on the water to get their attention. Then have some good decoys in them. So, and you know, I don't know where those decoys went. They probably just rotted away or whatever. And somebody asked about them, and I said, yeah, we made, all of us kids made them. And you don't have any? No. And they're probably worth something. I said, well, we're not carvers. And they said, doesn't make any difference, you know.
I think the coolest thing that I'm seeing right now is that you're sharing with folks the depth of the Eastern Shore and how folks made it work back then. You know, they didn't have big money like this to go out and buy flock decoys and stuff that looked totally lifelike. You know what I'm saying? And it's really cool for me when I go to some of the places here that, you know, I haven't been in or I've never been in, and I find stuff like that because I didn't know what those things were. But by having these kind of conversations, I got to be honest with you guys. Like when I listen to Bobby tell stories, whether it's in the store or wherever it's at, I'm always intrigued and I'm just always captivated by the stories because of how emotional he tells them. You know what I mean? Like I can almost vision myself there, envisioning him with a bleach bottle and a paintbrush making goose decoys. You know what I'm saying?
That's how a lot of these lures got invented. Some guys in his backyard just bending a piece of wire up or sticking something on a.
And that's what's
on
so
a
good
hook.
about this show today is we're gonna get to look back in time at a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? This is gonna be an awesome show. I'm really pumped up for it.
And you know, we, like we were talking about telling the story, it brings back such good memories.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, I want to talk to you, Bob. You know, you've fished here a long time. You've hunted here a long time. Let's talk about, before we get into fishing, let's talk about your passion for hunting. You know, we know you like to hunt. We know you like shooting whitetails and sickas. How has the sika hunting changed things here in Dorchester since they came into the play?
Well, when we first, well, when I was a kid, nobody wanted a Sika because it wasn't as big as a German Shepherd. Right. It was this tiny little thing that came out of the marsh that, you know, lived off that marsh grass, and nobody wanted it. And but you know, as far as hunting out or whitetail, whatever, like I said, it's our culture here. That's my father. You know, we were get to a certain age, and you go before you hunted with a gun, you went.
Yep.
And you watched and you know, it's not so much not only about hunting, but it's conservation. I mean, I watched my father, you know, before he would even deer season was in. We got in the truck every evening and we rode down Button's Neck, and he sat with binoculars and he watched their habits, and he looked, and you know, it might be this one big deer come out or something, and he didn't want him. You know, he picked out what he wanted. So, you know, there's a lot about conservation. And then when the Sika moved more inland out of the marshes, when they realized that these guys called farmers planted all this crop, these sweet soybeans and this wonderful corn. Why are we eating this old salt hay when we can be eating that? Yep. And they got, you know, bigger and bigger. And you know, back in the 60s, we had such a problem with the Sika down at the end of Button's Neck. We had one year that those deer destroyed 38 acres of corn. And we tried everything. We had permits to thin
them out.
To thin them out, and you know, and back then, you didn't shoot them and drag them in the woods. What we shot, we loaded on a truck and went out to the state hospital. Amen. And they were butchered. Amen. You know, Amen. So they didn't go to waste. Right. And what they finally found, tried everything down there, and you know, eventually they found out that the electric fence was the only thing that would come near keep them out, and that had to be repaired every day. But of course, you know, now they've moved. I talked to people up in Caroline County and the lower part of Delaware. Sika's all the way up there. Yeah. Oh yeah. But you know, once they got, which they are much larger now. The picture I showed you, sure. And you've seen it. Sure. The ones down there, the Button's Neck, and you know, it's such a good eating deer. I like myself, I go every year. I go back in my stand, and I want a Sika doe. That's what I want. Yep. That's the deer I want. I've let 10 whitetails walk right on by. I don't want the whitetail. I want that. And I'm not looking for that 6-point Sika. I've never eaten an antler in my life. So, you know.
This story kind of reminds me, and we'll get into snakeheads later, but listen to how he's telling this story.
It's the same evolution.
The Sika showed up. We didn't know if we wanted them, and then we tried them. We thought they were delicious, and now everybody comes for them. So there's a really parallel revelation here.
Well, Bobby, you remember when there were one-row corn pickers.
Mm-hmm.
And once they picked corn, all the neighbors went out in the field, gleaned the field, so there weren't anything for them to eat. You know, corn's the big thing. There weren't that many soybeans growing back then. And there wasn't anything for them to eat. And that's when the whitetails really bloomed, in the early 60s and stuff, when they come up with multiple row pickers, and there was a lot of waste. And all the big grocery stores came, and gleaning was over with. Everybody got rid of their chickens till 2019. Chickens are big demand again.
Yeah, and now a few years ago, I killed a Sika doe that I wanted, and when I processed her, she had 1.5 inches of nice orange fat in her. Yeah. You know, when I was a kid, if you skin them, there was this little razor thin thing of green looking stuff that was the fat. You know, and now people start putting corn out in August for these.
Oh, they feed them all year.
You know, when you raise the beef that you're going to, slaughter, 6 weeks before you get ready to do it, you feed him chops, which is corn and molasses and all that, and that fattens them up and gives them that marble into the meat. Well, that's what the Sika's starting to get in August now.
The education I'm getting here today, brother.
Well, it's funny he's saying, I mean, when I was in high school, that's when Sika deer first started to gain that popularity, early 2000s. That's when you saw the uptick in people coming in to hunt for them. But the accelerated timeline we've had with snakeheads with their increase in popularity is just insane. Just that comparison between the two different. So.
Right.
I think with the two coupled together, we've got an excellent opportunity,
my
Bobby,
gosh, yeah.
here in Dorchester County, not just for us as residents, but for the county as a whole as far as economic impact. And I think that's something that, everybody needs to be looking at here. We're trying to find ways to, thin our snakehead herd, let's say, and at the same time drive money into the local economy, such as the small businesses that are now open after the COVID thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, I think, again, man, I think this show was just delivered to us today. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, Bob, we know you like to hunt. We know you like all that. Let's talk a little about fishing. What was your first encounter with fish? I mean, what was the first fish that grabbed Bobby's attention as a child, let's say?
Would have been rockfish. My father bought a nice Bellcraft boat, and if it wasn't working, we were fishing, and that's what we were after, the rockfish, but then the blues and whatever. But you talk about the fishing, and I was talking about when I was 14, we got this spinning reel where you went down to Blackwater and you were looking for crappie and bass and all that. Well, when we got the farm that we have now, we've dug a pond on it, and that's how we stocked that pond.
So being that you're talking about Blackwater right now, I want to go here with this conversation. So we're going back into the 60s is what you're talking about. How was the populations of fish here back then? I mean, was there lots of crappie? Did you catch lots of bass? I mean, did you see lots of yellow perch? I mean, let's talk about the difference in the fisheries, from back then. Let's talk about that, and then let's get up to where we are today, you know? So back then, you were able to go there and catch lots of crappie and stock ponds here and do things like that. And it's real important that we mention that, because we're also going to talk about later in the show about what happened to your pond and how we had to change the pond and how we had to do different things to make the pond more ecologically sound than what had happened to it. So, so rocks and blues, tell us about the fishing in Blackwater. What did you catch back then? What was a typical day of you guys with your cane poles or whatever you had going around Blackwater catching some fish?
Well, we would be catching crappie and bass. I don't remember catching any perch or anything, because that's maybe it's what we were using the lower.
Sure.
Of course, early spring or late winter, you got minnows. You would use minnows and catch them. And it was a lot different back then. When you went down the Blackwater Bridge, when you got to the other side, that was marsh. I've got a video of me out there fishing on that bank that now it's a half a mile of water down there. And one, with the snakehead, the invasiveness of that in the Blackwater, it's like all kinds, not a 1-2 punch, but all kinds with not only is water level rising, but the Dorchester is sinking. It's actually sinking down. So with the nutria, the damage they did, saltwater intrusion into Blackwater. When back in the 60s, if you went from 335 and went up Blackwater to end of Harrisville Road, this time of year you wouldn't be fishing it now. It would be all lily pads. And if you go down there now, you don't see the lily pads.
None.
So, but that's what we were, back then. That's what we were after, was the bass and crappie, and it was conservation then too. If we weren't going to eat it, or put it in the pond, we turn it back loose again.
Yep.
So, that's why I was raised with by my father, was it's conservation.
And I think a lot of folks here on the Eastern Shore, were also raised with that same mentality.
Oh, yeah.
I know for me, when I started coming here as a kid, and coming down here, the first thing that was instilled in me was the right way and the wrong way.
Yep.
And to sit here and say I never did anything wrong, I would be a liar just like the next man. You know what I mean? Did I cut a corner one time shooting deer? I'm sure I have. So, but the bottom line is, as we've gotten older in life and as we mature, I think we realize the values of the things that we were taught as a young man that we didn't think were valuable,
Well, we learned something back then, I think you say it now, as kids. If we were invited, say, down to McKeel Point to go bank fishing off Mr. Mac's place, we called him. My father always told us, leave it better than what you found it.
Absolutely. Now, being that you're talking a little bit about that, let's jump right into this. So, when the anglers first started coming here, you know that since this whole thing's been unfolding, I've tried to stay as close to you as I can, and Eddie has, and we all have. We've all tried to keep the loop together, and so that we're all communicating, we're all on the same board. Now, we know that in the beginning that, we had a lot of people that were coming down, and yes, they were leaving a lot of trash, but I think that, some people in the community every now and then, they're real quick to point fingers at the guys that are coming here fishing, and the guys that are coming here hunting, and the guys that are coming here to visit. And I think that what the public really needs to know is that, we have done a job here to try to thwart anything that's coming our way. You saw it last year, you see it this year. We've got volunteers out every opportunity we've got picking up trash, so that the homeowners and the landowners and the people here know that we know they're coming. We can't stop them. So we've got two choices here. We either embrace it and make a difference, or we play hardball and we have problems, So I think that the reason I'm asking you to just kind of touch on this a little bit, because I think the community really needs to know how much we have done to make a difference here. That we're not here trying to just invite everybody from around the world to come here and catch snakeheads. Unfortunately, we are the epicenter of the world for snakeheads right now. So we got people coming from Asia. We got people coming from England. We got people coming from South America. We got people coming from Peru. We've got people coming from all over the world where they catch snakeheads to come here and fish. And I think for anybody in the community to say that we have done things to harm the community, I don't think that's the right approach. I think the right approach is if we see a problem in the community, let's reach out to the other community members and let's ask for help. Let's not point fingers. Let's not start holy wars between this community and this community. The bottom line is we all have to just work together here through this thing, and we're gonna figure it out. We're learning as we go, just like everybody else does. So when people call and they want to talk about things, I want them to know that we are open and we are receptive to listen to their objections, and we are going to do our best to find a way to handle any problems that arise and find solutions. We're not going to continue to drag the problem through the mud. We know we've got the problems. Folks, let's work together as a community. Let's find solutions to the problems instead of creating more problems. And I think you can understand that from where we're at. You see it firsthand what we're doing. I know that.
Right. I know firsthand because you got me involved with you. I know what you did. You called me about you were picking up trash. Bags were donated.
And tell them what you did for us.
And so I said, well, let me talk to our county council member and see if I can get you the tipping fee waived. So you can, you pick this trash up, and the council member says, sure. And we got the numbers. It's called this number. And if it's coming from Snakehead Life or whatever, then it's no tipping fee. So I know what you've done, and you continue to do, and Eddie and Gary and everybody is to, like I said, they're going to come here. Gary and I were down Buttons Neck the other day at the end of my farm lane, and there's two guys stopped, and they were wanted to go snakehead fishing, and they were.
They couldn't speak English, but they could say snakehead.
Yeah. So, like I said, they're coming from everywhere,
right.
And but it's not like you've invited them. Oh, just come here and trash your place. I know what you do, and I know what you continue to do.
And I'll tell you, I've been very fortunate in my life. I've got to do a lot of traveling, and everywhere you go, they're just people. We're all just people, and just because somebody's accent's a little different, God forbid, I can't hold accent against anybody. But they're just people. I mean, it's like when we were down at Little Blackwater, and fellow's last name was Gill. I don't remember. I know his name wasn't Blue, but I can't remember. It was really. We got along real good. That might have just killed it. But I mean, he was a really nice fellow. He caught a snakehead. We were standing there. I was standing there talking to him. The snakehead snatched his rod overboard. And then I had our maps on and hooked his rod, pulled it back in, and it was a nice snakehead.
Maps catches everything.
I didn't catch anything, man. But we stood there and talked to him, and he was on the film that she did. And a really nice fellow. He's a fireman up in Anne Arundel County, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, just nice man.
I mean, when we did the interviews last week with Chesapeake Magazine, we talked to a guy that was visiting from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We talked to a guy that was visiting. He was a firefighter from wherever he was at.
That was him. Yeah.
We talked to another guy that was retired Army, and he was there fishing, trying to enjoy his retirement. So it's not all bad apples that are coming here.
No.
You know what I mean? Is there one in the bunch? Sure, there's one in every bunch. I might be the one in this bunch today. You know what I mean? So, or every day. No, I'm just kidding. You know?
They're just people, and they're doing the same thing we do when we go somewhere to do something different. You're just there to have a good time.
Bobby, let's talk about a little bit. Let's start talking about some snakeheads. Let's go ahead and get into that because we're at about like 30 minutes now, aren't we?
Already,
So
yeah,
let's start moving forward with some stuff. This has been a great show. So I have my first report of a snakehead in 2009 that I caught. Now we know. How about this? How about if you tell us the story about the first snakehead that was in Dorchester County?
Well, I'm not quite sure about that, but I think it was around 2007, and it was there was a article in the Daily Banner with a friend of mine had a turtle pot set at the head of Gary Creek, which is not much more than a ditch, and that's at Hudson Road and Dalesville Road, and he pulls in his turtle pot, and he has a snakehead in it. Well, he didn't know what it was, and they had the Daily Banner take pictures of it and all that, and that was the first that we had heard of them. And
it was like 8 pounds.
Yeah,
Big one.
Yeah. So.
And see, the reason I wanted to ask that question, because that 8-pound fish, we're talking about a 30-inch fish. So we're talking about a fish that could have been here already 3 years plus, you know?
In a ditch.
Right.
Literally a ditch.
Right.
Yeah.
Drainage ditch.
Well, they said our DNA of our snakeheads here came from up the Delaware side and not from the Potomac side. So we know it didn't come across the bay.
Right.
So we don't really know when they first came here from Delaware.
Right.
So
and I think that's part of this big mystery that we may never, ever find out.
No.
You know what I mean? So Bob, let's talk a little bit about the changes that you've seen now, let's say in the last 10 years. Let's talk about a typical day 10 years ago fishing and a typical day today fishing down in the branch that you love to frequent. Let's talk a little bit about what happened to the pond. Let's talk about a little bit how we tried to get it cleaned back out. So tell us how it used to be and what it's like now.
Well, there's something about 10 years ago, if I wanted to go across the road from a farm to Buttons Creek, the branch, and catch a bass, a crappie, and it's pretty much guaranteed. And then, like I said, I've taken them and put them in the pond. And, you know, now when I go over there, it's either snakehead or carp. There's nothing else in there. And, you know, we're talking about my pond. We stocked it with crappies and bass out of the Blackwater. We put bluegills in, and that just fed the bass.
That's right.
So, and our pond is catch and release. I've got my 2 beautiful grandsons and my daughter, and they love fishing. And, you know, we take some minnows, and they're going to catch fish. And we catch them, and we put them back in. We every once in a while, we'll harvest the big ones. Well, a few years ago, now this pond is landlocked. It is drainage ditches. It's the nearest drainage ditch to the pond is probably about not quite 50 yards. And that ditch does eventually, 3/4 of a mile away is Buttons Creek. So real flood water can push its way, especially with the rain, could fill that up. But I don't think snakeheads, I don't know unless it was the egrets or whatever that they got in there. But I was down there fishing, and we would see some years ago some pickerel. So I catch this fish in my pond, and I thought, how do you get in here? You know, and I didn't know what it was, so I didn't want it in the pond, so I left it for the buzzards, and then I caught another one, and what are these things? Then I found out that they were, that one got fed to the buzzards too, because I didn't know what they were. I just knew I looked at them things. I didn't want them in my pond.
That's 2 meals you missed.
He's throwing away filet mignon.
Yeah.
He don't know it.
So then, but then I found out how good these things were. They don't get thrown away now. But I myself caught 26. Now it's an acre pond, but it's only a half acre deep water. I caught 26 out of there, and my brother caught 8. So we've the last few years we didn't have any in there, and
We thought we'd gotten them all out.
we gotten them out. Plus, you know, Bubba, or Big Bass Bubba, he's in that pond and his mouth is that big. So those little snakeheads aren't going to have a chance with him. But I did notice this year I caught 2 in there again.
They're back.
And both had roe in them. And I'm just a little bit suspicious of how they got in that pond.
Let me ask you this, because we've been talking about this a lot. You're seeing the ratio of females to males too.
Oh, this spring has been upsetting. I mean, it's oh, I love catching the fish.
Yeah.
But everything I've caught this spring has had roe in it.
This is what we can't figure out.
It's at least 2 to 1. It's crazy.
Look, and
My average right now, talking to folks,
Oh, it's
is
not
literally
too
8
bad.
out of 10.
Yeah,
80%.
it's-
80%.
It's 6-8 to 1 anyway.
Well-
Minimum.
what upset me 2 weeks ago, I caught a nice one, 6 pounds, roe in it. Well, the next day, I called it a dink. 13 inches, roe in it.
And
You
people
know,
got
that's a yearling, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. And it could even be younger than that, because
Yeah.
we are seeing fish at 9 months stretching out to 13,
Yeah.
14 inches with the protein that they're
Yeah.
receiving here in their diet. You know,
Yeah.
they're growing
Yeah,
at a
was it-
very much faster rate than a lot of places in
Yeah.
the
It was
world.
April or end of April, 1st of May. I caught 6 one night. They were all had roe in them.
Yep.
And the smallest one was like 12, 13 inches. I think I put a post on about it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was the other night, I stopped by where Gary was fishing and wet the bait a little bit, and he had caught one, and I caught a nice one. And he said, "Here, take this one, go with yours." And both of them full of roe. That's from what I said, like from 10 years ago, when you could go there and catch crappie and all, and you're just not seeing that now.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the frogs and the crayfish? I mean,
Right.
you know, I mean, you know me as a guy here that did these ditches. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I potted these ditches for crayfish, and you know that I'm not lying when I tell people I got 20, 30 pounds of crayfish every weekend, Friday through Saturday, to either use for bait, eat, or something like that. I mean, frogs. We used to be able to go out there and just get all the frogs we wanted. You know?
Right.
And you and me both can say this. And here's another thing I want to say. Bobby, you are a soils conservation guy here for Dorchester County, correct?
Right.
So these guys that want to keep coming back and saying runoff, this, that, everybody wants to keep blaming everything but what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I know that I'm not lying, and I know that you can attest to this. When you walk out at Button's Neck and you stand there, it's quiet as can be. And 10 years ago, me and you both know,
Right.
you stopped your truck on that road, put it in park, rolled down the windows with a girl. She loved every sound she was hearing out there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I hate to say it like that, but I mean that's the truth.
Well,
It wasn't
you know,
just 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the club down there to Bud's Neck for 5 years. And when I first started hunting down there, I wasn't even fishing there then. It was just, you could be in the stand in September, and at the edge of dark, you couldn't hear a cicala if he was running through the frag muddies for the bullfrogs.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are no bullfrogs now.
No.
And I noticed down there where you fish,
Yeah.
all the wood duck boxes, but I don't see any ducks using any of
Two
them.
of them down there got used this year. Yeah.
Well, and here's the other thing. I mean, we've been getting lots of pictures this year of the impact on the ducks here on the shore. You know, everybody thinks that we're making these stories up, you know, and what people don't seem to understand is these wood ducks, this is the Atlantic flyway, and this is their nesting home, and it is very, very critical for those ducks to be able to reproduce here in the refuge and the surrounding water. I mean, and that's not a lie,
No.
you know.
That's just straight up facts.
So, and the thing that kills me is that the more we talk about this and the more we show the public what we're seeing here, it's just how much doubt is still out there. And I understand that, you know, this is how I'm looking at it. Like, let's look at the Bush River up the bay. Okay, 3 years ago, we weren't seeing but maybe 1 or 2 fish caught by somebody. Last year, we saw, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 caught by a guy. This year, we're seeing 20, 30, 40 caught by a guy. How many bass are these guys catching where these snakeheads are, where they used to slam these big bass in comparison ratio to the amount of snakeheads versus bass catch? Because I know the answer, and I'm talking to guys.
Well,
And
Scott,
the and
Scott told us when he was here.
Well, I know. Yeah.
I don't care how many bass they're catching. You can't tell me that with the amount of increase that you're catching snakeheads in that short amount of time, there's no impact on the rest of the environment. You can't tell me that doesn't happen.
And for it not to be alarming to somebody, that just blows my mind, because you want to sit there and say how much you care about some place, and then the next breath do something else, you know. And I think the biggest thing is that, you know, that we stay focused on what we're doing. We stay honest with the people, and we keep producing the data we're producing, and we keep showing the pictures that we're showing, and eventually people are going to say, maybe there's something to this. You know?
I think the most frustrating part in the past week is seeing that petition go around. I agree. I understand how much fun these things are to fish for. We all enjoy it. We all enjoy catching them. We all enjoy eating them. But there's no way that these things can be a game fish.
I can't see it. I mean, and here's the way I look at it.
Actually, if it continues from what I see, they're going to wind up being a game fish, because they're going to be the only fish.
Right. That's the
serious,
truth,
man. It's no joke. Now Saturday I caught about a 4.5 pound bass, nice bass, and I've caught a couple more, but I haven't caught 1 pound.
Right.
I don't remember last.
We've been saying it for 2 years now.
Not in the Blackwater or the Transquaking or Chickasaw.
I mean, every now and then somebody will find one. Somebody will have a picture. That's fine. I'm happy to see one. Show me 100. Yeah. Show me 100 little bass like you're showing me 100 little snakeheads.
Right, exactly.
Man, I could go back to Blackwater and warp them 10 years ago. I mean, you get tired. You really get tired.
But now you're just getting tired when you catch the snakeheads, because it's the same thing. It's just a different species.
They're just bigger and they're more fun. They fight a little harder.
Exactly.
But I don't want it to be the only fish, and it pretty much is anymore.
Bob, let's talk about eating them. We know we like to eat them. How do you like to cook them?
Me, we fillet it, and the way I like them, I like coconut oil. I put some coconut oil in my frying pan, tablespoon of butter, let that melt. Now, I like J.O. spice, so I take my fillet and just sprinkle some J.O. spice on it.
There you go, ginger J.O. spice.
And then put the spice down in the coconut oil and butter, and then sprinkle a little on the other side, and just cook it in there. And then when I'm done, throw it on the plate and pour my coconut oil and butter over it and my J.O. spice on it. And coconut oil is really good for you.
He just reminded me, who's the painter guy that talks real
Bob
gentle?
Ross.
Bob Ross. He just reminded me of Bob Ross, that whole explanation and the emotional that he put into it. And look, folks, just add a little bit of butter and flip that thing over there. That's awesome,
People
Bob.
are definitely changing their mind about them.
Oh, yeah.
Because my wife wouldn't touch them. And Saturday, when I posted that picture of the one that I caught last Saturday, I got a text from her about 20 minutes later, "You're bringing him home for dinner tonight." That's what we had. I got home and we had him for dinner.
I had 2 guys in the store this morning, in fact, were telling me they were going out fishing for snakeheads. They said their kids don't eat fish. Will not eat fish, but they'll eat snakeheads. 100%.
I've had people that, I've said, I'll bring you something. You want to try? I said, they're good. They're delicious. I just can't get past the looks of it. I said, just don't look at the picture.
Just look at the fillet.
You're not gonna, when it's nice, cooked up nice, it's going to look like a nice piece of fish fillet.
I'll tell you what.
I've taken them to my coworkers, and they didn't say they wouldn't try, but I said, "You want to try some snakehead?" And every one of them says, "I'd like to have some more of that."
I think maybe we'll do here one day. Maybe we'll cook a bunch and just have a free snakehead hour or something. Anybody in town can stop by and try something for free.
We'll just cook them, bring them here, and weed them in front of everybody.
We can do that too.
You could have like what they have in Cambridge, a taste of Cambridge on that second Saturday,
Taste
and
taste the snakehead at the Wolf.
Yeah, and that different ones cook them the way they want. That's what they do.
That's
on that.
That's an idea.
And you have your recipe, and I have mine, and you try this, and then.
So now we have the Maryland Snakehead Festival, a Taste of Snakehead Festival. What else are we going to have going on down here in Dorchester?
Let's get past COVID-19. Right, talk about any festival.
Right. And I can give them the Mayor's Choice Award.
See how this works? I love it.
At the parking lot in Church Creek. Get that big trailer out of there.
A few years ago when Johnny Maltz had said that, when you actually got it going, was a snakehead tournament. Mm-hmm. So, Johnny got involved in that.
Yep.
Yeah, he stopped by 2 or 3 tournaments.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
and it was always good having him stop by.
Yeah.
I think the best thing here is that for those that are watching, they know we're trying to do the next right thing.
Yep.
And that's just the bottom line. You know, those who want to argue, fight, throw stones at glass houses, keep doing what you're doing because we're just going to keep doing what we're doing here in Dorchester County, period.
But when they're gone, when it's all gone, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry about that," we say we tried to tell you, and once it's gone, you don't get it back.
There you go.
That's exactly
Words
right.
of wisdom right there, folks.
Yep. Once the bass, crappie,
Yep.
and the perch are gone, it's going to be really, really difficult to get them back. That's for sure.
I think I told you all the story about where the soft launch is up on Egypt Road. When back in the late 70s, you could go in there and catch a huge amount of crappie, and they were all big. And some fellows went back there and pretty much cleaned it up, and they never come back. It's, when you get a little area like that, it's almost like a pond.
Yep.
You're going to catch them out. There's nothing to build them back. It takes years.
Well, what happened with your spot for the trout? Tell that story.
Oh yeah, so this is everybody's seeing good trout this year, but I had an area that was a great trout spot, and I showed one person, and that person wound up showing another person. They came in, they set nets on them fish, and they pretty much caught them all up off of that whole flat where they came to spawn. And it's been now this, and Meister knows the area, and a couple other guys that I fish with, and we've been fishing these areas now for I guess the last 5 years since it happened. And the year after they set the nets in there, literally there was nothing to be caught. I mean, there was fish, but it was all little 4 to 6 to 8 inch trout. We didn't see any 4, 5, 6 pounders, 1 or 2, but not a limit. You know what I mean? So I knew that had some impact on it. So the area that I found this year that had the trout, I just decided to kind of keep that one area quiet, let them work on the other areas that they knew about, and kind of just keep that held. But it's taken 4 years to see those fish come back into that flat and to do their thing, so that's, it would probably take a lot longer for something as far as Blackwater would go, do.
Well, you're
It's
talking about
so
a migratory
sensitive,
fish,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Right. Well,
these are landlocked fish. These aren't fish that are migrating back and forth. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
And that's just one spot.
Right.
That's not an entire ecosystem.
Right.
That's one
So
spot.
I agree. If you take them out of one area, I mean, they're gone. It's a landlocked area. They're not able to migrate back into it. We've got the migratory perch, the white perch this year, which we saw in our data collection. Our resident white perch are completely just about wiped out. We don't have those 2 to 4 to 5 inch white perch that we've had every year, through the summer to catch. They're not here anymore. The only fish that we see, and the netters can attest to it, is those migratory white perch that come in here that are doing their run. And as soon as they're done here, they go back out. So the only thing to hope is that, if we can knock the numbers down with the snakeheads through the anglers and make some kind of a difference, maybe those numbers can shift or they can change somewhere in there. But unless we can get more active here with what we're doing, I mean, the biologists are already saying what we're doing is not really making a difference, that they're just reproducing so fast and so much.
That's insane.
That even though we've got thousands of people coming here taking fish home, we're still not making a difference. I mean, that says something in its entirety right there to anywhere else in this state or any other tributary on the Chesapeake Bay. If it can happen here, it can happen there. Bottom line, man.
It will happen there.
Well, it's just a matter of when.
I have a question for you. You're talking about the fish. Like I said, I work soil conservation. I work up the county and all that, all those streams and all that. And the last few years, at the time of the year when you should see it, I never see any herring anymore on these streams where we used to go and.
So like I do see some of the herring, but I've definitely seen a decrease in the migratory herring that come through. Like you're talking about areas like up on Maple Dam where they used to come up there to them culverts and you could catch them on a little jig
Well,
head.
there you go up off the Marshy Hope and
Yes.
you're going up north to Chester,
Shoretown.
Chacon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All those streams. We used to go there in the 70s with nets and just net them for the herring grow.
Yep.
And I don't see them anymore.
I think Jim Thompson could probably handle that question,
Right.
being that his big thing is the migratory species, the herring, the shad. I mean, that's what he's involved of, removal of dams in the state to allow the return of the natural run of those fish. I have seen a good number of them down in like the Nanacoke area and some of the tributaries on that. But yeah, I mean, as far as the refuge goes, we don't see very much in there anymore. I do know that Mike Stegerwald, Pappy, that's what they call him. You know, he catches his hickory shad and his American shad and his herring here every year. I'm not going to say where he catches them, but I know that he's got a spot where he catches them. But he's also said that this is in an area with snakeheads, and he's also seeing they're not the numbers that they were. You know, each year it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, the numbers that he's catching. So yeah, I mean, all these things need attention. You know, the snakeheads need attention, the shad need attention. I mean, the rockfish need attention. We really need to figure out what this puzzle is all about.
Yeah.
You know, and we need to break it down. We need to put it back together, and we need to make it good again. You know,
Puzzle's the right word for it.
yeah, definitely.
So, Kaz, you got any one more? We're getting close to time here.
Yeah, I don't have any more more.
I do.
Oh, Gary's got a
Oh
one.
man, go Gary!
I got to ask you, Bobby. You were talking about when you first started hunting that you go hunting with someone. You don't have a gun or whatever. What was the first thing your dad let you shoot?
Popper, Harrington Richardson, single shot, 20 gauge.
What'd you shoot
popper.
with it?
Rabbits.
Rabbit. I was friggin' squirrel. Rabbit's good.
Rabbit. And the first gun that I owned, my brother Jimmy got that when he was old enough to have a gun. My father considered old enough. And then the next year it was passed down to me. And then when I was 15 years old, Richard Inslee sold me my first shotgun, the 16 gauge Noble pump
Nice.
with adjustable choke, which I still have.
Poly choke on the
Yep,
end. Yeah.
which is a Swedish shooting gun.
And having to change in tubes back then.
Yeah,
That sounds fancier than anything we got today. All
Yeah.
those tubes and changing stuff.
right. This you just turn. You
Because
could
on the
open
end,
it
you
up,
could change it from full to modified or improved.
Oh wow.
Right on the end, you just screw
open it
over.
up, drop a nickel down it, close it up. Couldn't get a dime in it. Reach out and get doves. I was hunting with a guy that had some kind of a fancy over and under, or Charles Daly or a John Daly or whatever it was, but it was an $800 gun. We were dove hunting up there at Mr. Joe Linscombe's, and me and my old Noble, we were just knocking those doves down, and he wasn't hitting anything. And he says, I can't understand it. You got that $25 gun, and I got that $800 gun, and I can't hit those doves. And I said, mister, I don't think it's the gun.
He probably made you walk him, didn't he?
Yeah, that gun it's not a Parker or anything, but it's my first gun, and I just love it.
I had a bolt action Mossberg with a poly choke on it. It was my first gun. Sears and Roebuck.
I think the first gun that my father gave me was his 12 gauge double barrel Sears and Roebuck's what it says on it, and it's got a little lever on it. And then the barrel falls forward, and it's got 2 triggers on it. I still got that thing.
My first gun was a Ruger 1022. And I love shooting. Actually, we shot that thing so much it near about fell apart.
Is that right?
Dad had to rebuild. He still got it. Dad rebuilt the whole thing. I mean, it is nice.
I would tell him what's shooting when you pull the trigger.
Oh, yeah.
How many times you pulled the trigger in your life?
Shooting, we were.
This is a good story, folks.
Yeah, Gary and I were in church on a Sunday morning, and this older gentleman, Mr. Smitty Rue,
Smitty.
He in the service, and after the service was over, he pulls out this old camouflage glove, and he's showing it to Lynn Spicer, and Gary's standing there, and he says, "Look at this," and there was a little hole in the trigger finger. He said, "Look at it, I pulled the trigger so many times. Look at that. Look what it's done to my glove," or however he put it. And I told him, I says, "Look at that, you're an amateur, Smitty. Look how many times I pulled the trigger."
That was classic. Oh, that was funny.
We thank you
I like
for your
seeing Smitty's
service.
face.
He couldn't say anything.
Yeah, he was done.
He just shook his head, turned around, and walked out.
Yeah, you know, there's always a bigger liar than you when he comes to hunting.
My father always told me, don't care if you got an answer, just make sure you got an answer. Don't have to be the right one. I ask you a question, you better have an answer. You know.
Yeah. Now, another thing in my family, when it came to guns, was with us, my brothers and my father had to have a humpback Browning, and I've got mine. That was it. You know, we weren't Remington people. We had to have a humpback Browning.
So, folks, if you got a humpback Browning out there, pull it out and let's see what you can get for it.
Well, Kaz, I think it's time.
I do too.
Yep.
Bobby, before I begin, I just want to say thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for your service to our community. And thank you for being our friend. I mean, we value your friendship, and we're so glad to have you here standing with us. And I just want to say thank you from both me and Eddie. I'm sure that's, and
Absolutely.
Gary, you know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, it's time. It's now the Sunday Funday Giveaway. All right, look, folks, we're out here at the Blackwaters Edge podcast. We're gonna do this every Thursday. Look, we're gonna get winners from the Crab Stand. We're gonna get winners from Blackwaters Edge. We're gonna have people donating prizes. We're gonna be giving away stuff every week at the end of our podcast. So look, here's what we're gonna start with. Okay, MEPS. Look, MEPS, folks. Look, if you saw Riley's pictures this week, okay. If you saw a lot of folks that were down here fishing with the Baltimore Oriole, and if you saw a lot of folks down here fishing with that bright chartreuse, that was the color this week. So look, Thomas Gim, I'm going to give you a Baltimore Oriole, and Johnny Bone, we're going to give you a MEPS number 5, and you guys can pick them up at the Wolford store in your travels if you get down here the next week. Look, these are how the giveaways are going to work, okay? When you win a prize, you're going to have 7 days to claim the prize, okay? If you can't come here to pick the prize up, we'll make arrangements to get the prize to you, okay? But if you wait until 2 weeks after we've done a giveaway to claim a prize, it's not going to happen. We're not going to hold prizes for weeks at a time because we're going to lose track of who's won what and who we're giving to, and it's just going to become a mess. So I've done this long enough. I know what we need to do to make it run right, and that's how we're going to do it. So look, from the Crab Stand out there, Crab Stand, home of the guaranteed number 1 Maryland crab. When you need Maryland crabs, you need the Crab Stand. Look, Father's Day is coming. The magic question is, are you going to have the crabs, Kaz? Look, I'm going to be honest with you. You saw the post. We're not taking any orders. Be there when I open up at 11 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday, or be there at 12 o'clock when I open on Friday, and we'll make sure that we get you something that you don't leave with an empty belly, and you have something to put in that for your dad and yourself when you get home. So that's how it's going to work this week. We're not going to take any orders. Be there when I open up. I'm going to make sure that you got something. So this week, Angie Powell, I'm going to give you a dozen crabs. Kapow! Michelle Carter, I'm going to give you a dozen crabs. Kapow! Barry McGill, I'm going to give you a dozen crabs. Kapow! Kapow! And then listen, wickedstickers.com. My good friend Eris Mato's out there. He's going to give you a Crab Stand giveaway bag. He's going to have a t-shirt, might have something else in there. Who knows what we're going to have, but it's going to be good. So Eris is going to give Debbie Blanche Stanko. You can pick up that package this week at the Crab Stand. Stonebridge Grill, my good friend Chef Mitch. Look, if you need to fill your belly and you're at the Maryland-Pennsylvania line and you're in the Parkton area, good God, you got to stop out there and try some of his food. He's giving you all a $20 gift card so that you can get something for free. And Gregory Wentz, kapow! We're going to give you that gift card. Now, look, I know you all been asking about the song. I haven't sung the song. Y'all, can we sing the song? All right, look, let's sing the darn song, okay? Y'all know my crabby jingle, so here we go. This is for you, Dad. My crabs, they have 3 first names. It's heavy, full, and fat. My crabs, they have a 4th name. Absolutely mustard packed! So, if you ask me where they're from, they're 100% guaranteed Maryland number 1s from right here on the Eastern Shore. At the Crab Stand, here's a fact I know for sure you're coming back. Kapow! Kapow! And kapow! Get out there. Thanks, everybody.